What got me started is David Cohen's book, Great Psychologists as Parents. I'm a big believer in reading pretty much anything related to behavior, even if it's not written by a behavior analyst. In this case, Cohen did careful research to describe the parenting of some big names in psychology, like Freud and Skinner. As I wrote in the blog post, some did better than others, but all of them, despite all of their training and expertise, were imperfect. I found this tremendously liberating. Sometimes behavior analysts, in an effort to be precise, give the impression that behavior will go off the rails unless we do everything exactly right. And of course, there's the societal expectation that if you have special training in human behavior, you should be more effective than average at things like parenting. But our own research tells us to chill out a bit on this topic. If you look at studies of treatment integrity, for instance, a lot of interventions work quite well when you do them only 60% to 80% right. Cohen's lovely final chapter extols the virtue of the concept of the good enough parent, and I think treatment integrity is a fair operational definition of what this means. Kids need us to do some things decently well more often than not, but they don't need us to do everything perfectly all the time. If they did, Homo sapiens would have gone extinct long ago. Oh, this is a trick question. What I want to emphasize here is that the instant you congratulate yourself on being a great parent, you invite the universe to smack you down. Here's a simple example. A friend was at her wit's end because her 10-year-old son kept leaving his dirty laundry laying around everywhere. She devised a pretty reasonable contingency system that paid off when spot checks of the son's room revealed laundry-free floors and other surfaces. Almost overnight, the room went from disaster to spotless. Pat on the back for that perfect parent, right? But after about a week, Mom noticed that the boy's mattress wasn't sitting quite right on the box springs, and underneath she found a week's worth of dirty clothes. This question is a bit tricky because my children are now adults and I'm cautious about saying anything that would embarrass them. Let's just say that the that moment list contains some things of which I have first-hand knowledge. So we have something to talk about. Let's just pick the first item on that list so members of the audience who are not parents can imagine how that moment feels. Discovering that your toddler will only release a bowel movement while wearing a diaper inside a plastic playhouse on display in front of Walmart. Not any Walmart, only the one on the east side of town. So let's say, for the sake of argument, that you have a normally developing child, even advanced on some measures, like this kid started walking and talking at 8 months and is precociously social and learns most things easily. And then, this starts out of the blue? Where does something like this even come from? I challenge anyone out there to propose a likely to happen in real-life behavioral history to explain it. This is all hypothetical, of course, but you get the idea that one of parenting's challenges is that sooner or later you have to confront behavior that seems to make no sense at all. Just to be clear, I'm not saying that there are behaviors with no rational cause, only that even when you spend 24 hours a day with a child, you may not notice or recognize the relevant variables. The world is insanely complex and we're not going to make sense of everything. As I wrote in the blog post, my wife and I are both PhDs in the behavioral sciences. We both knew a fair amount about kids before we even went to grad school. So we knew two important things. First, you just don't have the time or energy to functionally analyze and intervene systematically on every behavior that catches your attention. Second, fortunately, somehow despite imperfect parenting, most people turn out okay, so it's not a crisis that you can't be scientific about everything in your child's existence. The real benefit of having experience and education related to child rearing is that we know about some things that have pretty predictable adverse effects on kids. As I wrote in the post, one of those is inadequate language experience, so we resolved that, even if we botched everything else, we would talk to our kids often and in ways that have been shown to spur language and cognitive development. In hindsight, we did both a lot else, but I think we did okay on this front. Let me add something that's not in the post. If you watch master clinicians at work, one thing they get right, every time, is that they pick up on what a kid is interested in. Most behavior analysts will recognize the potential here to identify useful reinforcers, and, sure, that's important, though I want to stress a different angle. Often overlooked is that a big part of successful relationships involves one individual becoming a powerful conditioned reinforcer to another. How are conditioned reinforcers created? By pairing something with already effective reinforcers. Now, every kid is weird and quirky in what they enjoy doing. But if you engage with them on what they enjoy doing, well, you're the something being paired with an already effective reinforcer. I think a lot of parents miss this point. My wife and I am proud and maybe a little embarrassed to say, spent countless hours doing stuff that, I'll admit, mind-numbing to us but served a purpose. I don't want to say a lot here for the same reason as above. Out of respect for my adult kids, I don't want to overshare about them. Maybe the thing to stress is just that, in parenting, you have to be comfortable with the fact that you get what you pay for. From a pretty early age, my kids were able to poke holes in faulty parenting logic. Man, it annoyed me when they did this, but I tried to bite my tongue and recognize that thinking critically and problem solving were things I wanted the kids to be good at. So, lots of times I had to just accept that they made a good argument and back down, which wasn't easy from the perspective of, because I said so, parenting. I also had to accept that sometimes this stuff would leak out in public in awkward ways. One time we were visiting relatives and one morning my kid was playing with their kid. As Uncle Henry, who had a temper and could be pretty scary, gathered his things to head out to his job, he said sternly to the kids, "The basement is off limits. I don't want to catch you ever going down there." My kid, totally nonplussed, didn't even look up from her toy, and said calmly, "That's okay, Uncle Henry. We'll wait until you go to work and then you won't catch us." Uncle Henry turned beet purple and for a moment I was afraid we might have to call Child Protective Services. I can't tell you anything that members of your audience who are parents don't already know. You pretty much always get one of two reactions. First, a lot of people are familiar with portrayals of psychologists in film and on TV. They're universally unethical, disturbed, and/or ineffective. And, if they have kids, really lousy at that. So some people, if they know you do anything professional with kids, expect you to be a loony. This you can sometimes dispel by just hanging around and being a regular person, if indeed that's in your repertoire. Other people think that mental health professionals are a secret society with mystical knowledge that only they understand, and hence must be better at parenting than regular people. This, too, is easy to dispel. Once people get to know your kids, they will immediately understand that you have no magic parenting potion. I'm going to answer all of these together. The only plausible reason why most people, despite having inadequate parenting, turn out okay is that somehow most parents manage to do enough of a few big picture things. If you want to invest worry in how to be a good parent, I suggest reading up on big picture things that have a disproportionate impact on child development. This is how my wife and I settled on language development as one of the things we didn't want to screw up too badly. We'd read Hart and Risley and related stuff, and it's just clear that kids who know a lot of words and are skilled at using language as a social tool have a ton of advantages in life. And, as the 30 Million Words Project in Chicago demonstrates, you don't need a PhD to put this wisdom into action. That project's mission is to teach the parents of at-risk kids how to leverage language development. If economically challenged, undereducated parents can learn to do it, you can too. But, and I stress this, you'll have an easier time if you take a multidisciplinary approach. A lot of the best work on child development was not done by behavior analysts, so if you want to know what really helps or hurts developmental trajectories, you need to read more widely than your training in behavior analysis probably prepared you for. In behavior analysis, we're so used to focusing on discrete behaviors for measurement purposes that we can overlook big picture effects. An example worth taking a look at is attachment. At its core, this has to do with how early experiences affect later social relationships. Sounds like something behavior analysts ought to be interested in. If you read in this area, you have to look past a lot of theorizing that might not make a lot of sense and just focus on the data on young children, which tend to be pretty good.